2 years ago today, the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, ending the constitutional right to an abortion. The impact? Well, some states moved to protect abortion access, while others passed laws making it more challenging than ever to get an abortion. Brand new CBS News polling shows around 2/3 of Americans feel that pregnant women are more at risk in places where abortion is mostly illegal. Those concerns are connected to the overall views on the legality of abortion. But as the CBS News polling reveals, a majority of Americans still think abortion should be legal in all or most cases. Abortion rights continue to be a top election issue. Today, Vice President Kamala Harris will speak at a reproductive freedom campaign event in Arizona. The Biden-Harris campaign is using the issue of abortion rights to win women voters and to draw a contrast between Republicans and Democrats. Beyond abortion now, we're also looking at how young voters feel about the big issues and the candidates. New CBS News polling shows voters under the age of 30 favor President Biden by more than 20 points. Campaign reporter Nydia Cavazos spoke to young voters across the political spectrum in the battleground state of Arizona to find out what's on their minds ahead of the election.
Abortion rights, women's rights, a lot of different topics that are being challenged today.
I definitely have strong opinions about abortions. I think that women should be allowed to have abortions. It's their body. They can choose what they do.
Honestly, I haven't made up my mind. I think both of them aren't very the best options for our country.
And many of these young voters also feel that the older generations are leaving them a more dangerous world. So how will that factor into this upcoming election? Elections and Surveys Executive Director Anthony Salvanto breaks it all down for us.
Hey there. So young people could be decisive in this election, but let's look at the way they feel about the world that they're entering into as voters. Start with this. The legacy of older voters, these younger voters feel, is leaving them an environment that's worse and one with fewer economic opportunities. Now, what they see specifically is that compared to previous generations, these younger voters feel it's harder to buy a home, harder to raise a family, harder to get a good job. Well, what does that add up to? For them, this is the most diverse, racially diverse generation in history, and it shows in what they want out of politics. These younger folks believe that politics would be better, not just if more young people were elected, but also if more minority voices were in politics at a much larger rate than voters over 65. Previous generation believes that. If more women were elected, also higher numbers there than older voters. Now, they are also increasingly in a more racially diverse electorate. So what are they going to do there? Well, right now, the horse race is Joe Biden leading with younger voters and doing so at about the same rate as he won them in 2020. But turnout is going to be the big key here. And I'll show you this slide. Are people paying attention to this race? Well, younger voters are thinking about it much less than their older counterparts. That's number one. Number two, I'll pull up this slide for you, and it'll show you who says they're definitely going to vote. Well, younger voters, okay, 2/3 are, but that compares much lower than the almost all of voters who are older, over 45, over 65, who say that they're definitely going to vote. So what that does for the campaign is, can it motivate more of these young people to turn out? I'll show you this, too, because age is a factor while we're talking about age here. In both cases, they say that Biden's age and most say Trump's age are a factor in the campaign, more so for Joe Biden. And that also then translates to them as half of the voters say neither candidate understands the needs and concerns of young people. How does that affect turnout? I'll show you this. When they're not satisfied with their choices, younger people are less likely to say they're definitely going to vote. For older folks, even when they're dissatisfied with their choices in this campaign, they still say that they're going to turn out. So that's the dynamic here. It's going to be about motivation. Yes, this is a group that could be decisive, but will they show up? Last point. Let me show you some of the issues that they care about. And it's starting here, because there's big differences between what younger voters want to talk about and factors in their vote than people over 30. I'm going to point out this one in particular, climate change. I said earlier that they felt like they were inheriting a world with a worse environment. That's why they want to hear about climate change. And race and diversity issues, too, also really stand out for them. These factors all accrue to that vote for Joe Biden that I showed you, but it also sets them apart from older voters, a little bit more concern about abortion here. And that's important because not only does that help out Joe Biden's vote, but note this, and it relates back to whether or not they're paying a lot of attention to the campaign. There's still relatively more of them who aren't sure what Joe Biden's abortion policy might be. Again, setting up this dynamic where can the campaign not only motivate, but also talk about the issues that the voters care about in a way that resonates. So that's a breakdown from the latest CBS News poll focusing on young voters.
That is fascinating, Anthony. A special programming note for you. CBS News 24/7 is your one-stop shop for the first presidential debate. Coverage will begin streaming Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern on America Decides, and then the debate begins at 9 p.m. Eastern.